everybody, it's Stalker13R coming at you with another episode. A little house cleaning today before we get started. We're going to start releasing the videos on Saturday instead of Sunday. So they're going to come to you a whole day early and be there for your weekend when you're hanging around not playing tanks for some reason. And another thing on that, I usually, if it's just a single perspective game, then I'm going to have a second half game at the end or some kind of other clip that offers an alternate viewpoint. So if you've been tuning out once you see that stats page, if it's just my tank, there's usually a second game in there. So be sure and you can fast forward through the parts that, if you're not interested in the stats of that particular game, go ahead and hit the fast forward button and get on over there and see the end of that game. But if it's a multiple perspective game like this, then you're going to already have listened to me talk for too long. So we'll get into that talking right now. There's three enemies pushing across this southern part of the map here, and I wanted to talk about El Hal because that in the original days everybody just camped the ridges until they kept pushing out farther and farther towards the northeast and found the rocks. Well, then everyone goes to the rocks, and 9 times out of 10 lately, if I have a loss on this map, it's because we get cross-capped by those people pushing across on that part of the map. So I wanted to go back there into Camperville and see if they really are just sitting back doing nothing, or if there's actually a reason for them and if they have a purpose, and if they're keeping that gun warm throughout the game. So here is from the Train Clan, shout out to you guys, God's Angels, and he was in the original teaser video for those Train Platoon videos. If you didn't catch them, they should be in the recent queue here. In December we released a couple of Platoon footages, but this guy on that day, for whatever reason, had other things going on and he didn't get in on it. And we weren't teamed up in a platoon on this game, but he sent me a message in-game and said, "Hey dude, I'm in your game. We just happened to end up in there together." So I wanted to put in his footage, because now we've got the perspective from battling it out up here in the rocks, and he's in his M103 and he's got 2 stars on the barrel. I've only got 1 star on the barrel of mine, and he's going to show us how to drive this tank. So here he is, and he's going to be trading shots across this area. Now he's going to bounce the shot that comes in and penetrate the shot that goes out. And they're going to work these rocks. And it is important that enough of your team comes up here to the rocks to get this battle to be able to focus targets like they're doing. They're engaging these enemies 3-on-1 or 3-on-2. And they're able to quickly, take those targets down. Here we are about, 2 minutes into the game, and it's already 4-1 our favor. So, being able to get here quickly and focus on those targets as they show up before they have a chance to consolidate, that's a great idea. But you've got to have about 5 tanks in the backfield here, and this is why. You saw those 3 tanks coming across. Well, here we are 2 minutes into the game, and he's already at the top of this ridge, and he's going to try to push around and take out the artillery, and then have flank shots on our TDs, and then push into the flank of the guys in the rocks. And, that's going to be a recipe for our team taking a loss if we allow that to happen. So we're going to get over here, and we're going to get in a face hug with this guy to stop his mobility, and we're going to take him off the battlefield. And then we're going to continue to work around. So in the first minute of the game, being back here in Campertown where people do nothing, I was able to get my gun heated up, and together with a partner tank, we took a what could have been a powerful enemy in critical map position off the table and got him out of the way. Now, if you saw my New Year's video, you saw me sitting on the wrong side of a 215 Bravo, and if you haven't, go back and see that. It's worth a giggle. And we're going to show you that this is the right way to do it. And here we're going to execute some OK tanker play. And I usually focus on map position and strategy, but since, we had a don't in this tank before, we're going to show you the do. So now that I've engaged, even though he's looking the other way, still stick to that habit of reloading behind cover, even if they're not looking at you. And it's keeping me artillery safe by keeping me in motion. So that's some individual points. But here there was 4 tanks that pushed across, and they were going to be putting pressure on our camp and flanking everybody up in the rocks if we weren't back here doing our job. So that's kind of the point of this video, is in that shifting meta, it shifted too far to the rocks, and you'll hear a lot of people throwing salt early in the game, oh, not enough people came to the rocks, or they didn't all go brawl that corner that's now just off the 5 o'clock of God's Angels here, because that was a traditional brawl corner, but now that meta has shifted to where it's a lot more in this center area of the rocks. And them winning this push makes that original corner for traditional brawling. You've got to hold it. You've got to get somebody up there to hold it as a place marker, but then it's this center push that's going to be the critical area that opens up this flank. So now, since they've essentially won this flank, and they're going to clean it up here. Now, 9 times out of 10, if you lose this game, not only is it because there was a cross cap, but it was at this point in the game when these guys win this flank, none of them drop back to go back to base and to cover and protect against that cap. Now, how capping works is only 3 tanks count towards running up your clock. So if the 8 guys that are successful on this flank push on to cap, then they're going to be at an even race against the 3 surviving enemies that are sitting on our base. And if those guys are, the enemies are 11 seconds ahead, even though you've got 8 tanks and they've got 3, they're 11 seconds ahead and they're going to win that game. So why would you take a numerically inferior enemy and put them on par with you for a chance to win the game? So now these guys in our scenario today, they realize that we're still back there and we've protected against that and we're not getting cap pressure. So they are free to push forward on the battlefield. And the map position and strategy that I'm going to talk about today for God's Angels, he's a good tanker and he knows he doesn't have to fall back to base, but he does have to push on to the cap. And since he's in a tank that has the mobility and the turret speed, he's going to push down this lower flank here. Now, whether you're dropping back to defend cap, to defend from being capped, or you're pushing on to cap, this low road on both sides of the map is a great way to do it because you can use your mobility to push deep into the enemy sector, and you'll have the opportunity for a flanking fire on the enemies. You can see right now God's Angels has 2 partner tanks that are at the top of the ridge, but they get slowed down. And God's Angels has the options here, being on this lower road, that I'm above him over there in that yellow medium tank symbol, and I'm covering him, so he's got flank cover. And we're going to be able to get at this bat chat from a number of different angles because they're screening the center of the map. Not only are they doing that, but if there's a problem up on top of the ridge, God's Angels could pop up on the flank of that and we could have flanking fire on those enemies. Because as you're pushing across those open areas towards the cap, the enemies have all of the cover and they can slow you down greatly. And whether you're defending from being capped or trying to cap yourself, they can slow you down enough that you won't be able to do either. So this lower route here is a great route that adds that mobility and still gives you the option to come up on the flank or screen the center of the map. So I've beat that horse to death quite enough. And we're going to go back here and see, okay, so it was in the early game we had our barrel heated up and we were doing something. You know, how did we fare after that? And next week we're going to have a second video that's on the same thing, and we're going to look at it in the middle tiers. You know, tiers 5 through 7. I think I'm in a lichen in that video. So we're going to show you the 2 different areas, and, you know, the meta has shifted even farther in those middle tiers. You know, because there's not as much of that experience on the battlefield. So we're gonna take a look at that middle tier as well to finish off our point. And now, as much as I was driving the tank pretty good earlier, I'm just gonna wing shots into space and fire behind the bat chat. But we're still getting spotted target damage, and we're still keeping that other ridge lit. And I don't need to push across here because I do have angles of fire. There is still a bat chat that could come up and threaten our artillery, and I am getting these opportunities for shots across the canyon. And there I'm going to bounce an AP shot off of a GW Tiger. You know, curses to you. And RNG giveth and RNG taketh away, huh? So we're going to see if we can't get angle on this guy. But my point is, instead of pushing across the valley to go up and put pressure on their cap, I've still got a defensive role to play over here, and I've still got an offensive role to play over here. and that's the only reason I haven't pushed across in this game. In next week's game, we're going to show that if you are back here, there is a time to push across and put that pressure on, and that'll kind of be the opposite view of this game to show you two different examples of how you can play this backfield. 9 times out of 10, I myself do go back to the rocks, or do go up to the rocks, and I'm ready to fall back to protect against getting capped out rather than push on to the enemy's cap. So I wanted to come back here and spend a couple of games in what everyone calls Camper Town, and just see what they're actually getting done back there. So you can see we got an 80%. We're top of the list. It's a pretty average game for the Centurion 7-1. It was a great opportunity to just happen to end up in a game with God's Angels here from the Train Clan. Shout out to all of you guys. Thanks for helping me with this footage and making this point. And we'll have some more footage of God's Angels here in the future. He's a great tanker, and he's really getting it done. He said, Stalker, I want to get in another game where I get a lot more damage. I can do so much better. And here on the channel, it's not about the individual epic, carry or the game where you got all of the damage and your teammates did nothing. It's about how do you work as a team to get those wins on the board. So that's why we went ahead and showed this footage anyway. And, he's definitely out there doing a lot of damage. He's got a couple of stars on that barrel. So he was getting near that third one. He's probably got it by now. So shout out to you, epic tanker, proper Englishman, and thanks for getting in the game, sending me out a message in-game, hey, I'm in your game. So it's great to run into folks and see them. Another good game in the Centurion 7-1. I'm Stalker 13R, thanks for watching.